Hey guys, it's me, Abby Sharp. I know I'm looking a lot more glamorous than normal. I'm here like in my PJs with my hair done and my makeup done. But I was on TV earlier this morning, so they did my hair and makeup and they always do such a nice job, way better than I could ever do in my life. So thank you to the hair and makeup gods of television. But today I thought we would talk a little bit about my insomnia because a lot of you guys have asked me about it and asked me to talk about it. I see a lot of your messages and comments come in at like 2 in the morning, so I know I'm not alone. But please know that this is kind of hard for me to talk about because I don't know, sometimes I kind of feel a little bit embarrassed that I'm struggling with something that, should be so easy. And I kind of feel like a little bit of a failure for that. But, it is what it is. And I guess what I'm saying is please try to be kind to me and don't shame me for my journey, please. Because it's been a really hard year. But yeah, let's talk about this. I have been struggling with sleep for as long as I can remember, though under like really good low stress circumstances, I am a like 8 hour a night kind of sleeper. For most of my life, this has been like bed at 10, up at 6. But since becoming a mom, it's more like 9 to 5 because my kid goes to bed at 7 and I'm really tired by 9 o'clock usually. And I have to get up really early so that I can like squeeze a workout in if I want to, or get a little bit of work done before my kid does get up. Having said that, of course, anytime anything stressful happens in my life, it all goes to so for sure in pregnancy, my sleep was bad because, I was uncomfortable and I had to pee all the time and I was anxious about the experience in general. But I think a lot of pregnant women do struggle with sleeping, so that's not that abnormal. Then of course, postpartum, I was breastfeeding and pumping throughout the night. And even though my kid is a really good sleeper, by 4 months, he was sleeping 7 to 7, which is amazing. I would be up twice in the night to pump and that could take me like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then it would take me another like hour or so to wind back down. So that was a total struggle. And by the time I quit pumping in the middle of the night, it was like the world opened up to me and I was like, this is what sleep feels like. And I had an amazing stretch of sleep for like a good, like 6 to 9 months maybe. And then in the spring, my son turned 1 and literally it hit the fan. I started thinking about my infertility again, which I don't know, maybe I'll talk to you guys about that someday when I'm ready, when I feel up to it. But I had some, major business restructuring, some massive friend drama. And on top of all that, work really was starting to ramp right up. So my channel was growing and obviously that meant, lots of love, but it also meant lots of hate and trolls. And I'm no stranger to trolls. It doesn't really bother me, but it was just a lot to try to juggle and manage and respond to at the same time. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but my YouTube channel is just one part of my business. I have a lot of other things going on. So needless to say, the year was super stressful and exhausting and ultimately really hard. And it really impacted my sleep. Now, before I go on, I want to just preface that I have never actually taken any prescription sleeping pills. It's not that I think that they're bad or I want anyone to think that they should feel guilty or ashamed for taking them, but it's just not something that I have felt like I needed or wanted to do. So in the past, at the recommendation of a sleep psychiatrist I had seen, I kind of allowed myself to take something 3 days of the week or 3 nights of the week, something over the counter like ZQL or Gravol or like high dose melatonin, something like that. And that was working for me really well. At the start, when I was having a stressful day, I would be like, okay, this is the night that I need to take something to just let me relax and get a good sleep. But as my stress was mounting and the kind of anxiety was taking over, I was finding it really hard to cope without taking something. So usually at some point in the night, I would kind of panic if I hadn't been sleeping for a few hours, and I would even if it wasn't one of those 3 days that I had allotted to taking like a Gravol or melatonin, I would feel like I needed to have something and take something. And because I was already like a few hours into this process of trying to get to sleep, I would be so riled up that the drug wouldn't even work. So then I would feel like I need to take something else on top of that or more, a higher dose. And sometimes I would eventually fall asleep after a few hours, and sometimes I wouldn't sleep at all. And those were the rock bottom days, or nights, I should say. those were the worst. And it eventually got so bad that I was feeling like the drugs just weren't helping me anymore. And that's what happens when you use a lot of these sleeping aids. They may not be addictive, but they're kind of psychologically addicting in that like you're dependent on them, and the same dose does not really work so well anymore. You need higher doses to get the same effect. So that kind of freaked me out. And that's when I decided I wanted to get off like all of these medications and employ a really strict sleep hygiene protocol in its place. Okay, so what did that look like? Well, first of all, of course, I'd have dinner, 6 o'clock, have dinner with my family, put my kid to bed around 7, then I'd wash my face, get ready for bed, avoid any liquid anywhere close to bedtime, and only decaf during the day. I would get into bed really early, like maybe like 7:30ish or so, and I'd start with a meditation, a mindfulness meditation. I like progressive muscle relaxation. That's one of my favorites. You can find those on YouTube or just kind of download an app for them. And then I'd put white noise. I've got a white noise app on my phone. Put that on, put my phone away. Wouldn't look at my phone, so no blue light emitted, no screen time at all. And then I would do some journaling. So I had a journal, kept it by my bed. I would write down anything that was, stressing me out or anything I was thinking about in the day that might come up or creep up at night. And then I would get out like a really boring book and I would start to read until my eyes started to get like really tired and droopy, basically. And then I would attempt to go to sleep at like 8 p.m. I know, like geriatric hour around here. So like no TV or anything like that. I also would get out of bed anytime that I wasn't sleeping for like more than 20 minutes. I'd get out of bed, which sucks. And I'd go read in my office or I'd go to the guest room and read there. I also would not nap in the day. That's another really common recommendation from sleep experts. No napping. Even if you're exhausted, would never attempt a nap. So my bedtime just kept getting like earlier and earlier because I just was so exhausted from just sleeping so poorly. And also if I like did finally fall asleep, I'd be waking up at like 3 or 2 in the morning and staying up. So I genuinely was tired when I did hit the sheets, but I was just so fearful of pushing my bedtime back any further because I was afraid that it would mean even less sleep. So I literally had like no social life because I was just so chained to my perfect sleep routine. Well, guess what? Not only did this not work, but I actually think that it was making it way, way worse because this perfect sleep routine was becoming kind of psychologically associated with me not sleeping. I also use like a bunch of different meditation and story apps, like sleeping apps like Sleepy, Sleep With Me, Calm, Headspace, like I tried everything. But the problem was that basically what would happen is I would memorize them. And as it got to the end of the story or the end of the meditation, I would start freaking out in my head being like, oh my gosh, we're near the end. 45 minutes has gone by and I'm still not asleep. It's like I would hear the jingle of like the start of a new story or the start of a new kind of episode, and it would like send me into panic mode. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but it is like the worst problem to have. So yeah, that totally made it worse. Now, the next thing I tried was hypnosis. I know that hypnosis sounds like super wooey and like total bull. The thing is, I think it's just misunderstood because it's not like magic. It's actually just almost like a personalized meditation recording. But of course, the same thing would happen that was happening to me with all of my meditation apps, and that was that I was just memorizing the recording, and as we got to the end, it was causing me even more anxiety. So it obviously did not work either. So next on my attempt list was CBTI. So CBTI stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. And I've done CBT for general anxiety for years. And if you want me to speak about my anxiety journey, if that's something you're interested in, definitely leave me a comment below and I will get to that in a whole other video. That's a totally different beast. So basically this is the process where your therapist will restrict the amount of time that you spend in bed so severely that ultimately you become so exhausted you just can't help but sleep. So in this scenario, my usual bedtime of like 8 p.m. was being shifted to 11 p.m. I wasn't allowed to like go to sleep or fall asleep till 11. And then no matter what, I'd have to wake up at 4 a.m. So what that meant was that even if I tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep till like 2 a.m., which was not uncommon, it meant that my alarm was gonna go off at 4 a.m. Too bad, so sad. I did not like that idea. Just the thought of having to stay awake without even the possibility of sleeping in or going to bed a little earlier the next night to make up for like a really poor sleep the night before, it made me so anxious that like I couldn't sleep at all. I would just be like so fearful of bedtime all day long. It didn't work for me. Now I know that CBTI does work. I mean, it's like the gold standard. It has a really high success rate for insomnia. But I think you need to have some kind of flexibility in your work situation to be a little bit of a zombie while you go through the process. And I just didn't. I just didn't right now. I've been so busy. I needed to feel like I would have some energy to function in the day. What I did take out of CBTI, which I think is really useful and helpful for everyone, is that I kind of poisoned my bed. And what that means is that I was associating my bed with not sleeping. So it meant I had to be super strict with myself about getting out of bed if I was not sleeping there. So if I was tossing and turning for like 20 minutes or more, had to get out and do something else. Otherwise, the moment I would get into bed, it would be like, bing, all of the insomnia thoughts would come rushing back. I'm also taking some supplements, some kind of natural sleeping supplements. One is magnesium calm powder. It's like a powder that you take before bed. That's been awesome. I will note, however, if you're gonna try that you wanna start on like a low dose and work your way up, because it can cause, I don't want to say diarrhea, but it can cause like loose bowels, so to speak, or some kind of digestive issue. So just don't go crazy on the portion sizes for that. The other one is rhodiola, which is an adaptogenic herb, which honestly I've always thought was totally bullshit. But even if it's the placebo effect, at this point, I was kind of like willing to try anything. And then the other thing is a time-released melatonin. And I used to take like 10 milligrams of melatonin plus a sleeping aid. Now I'm down to like just a few milligrams of time-released melatonin, and I'm hoping to be off it completely by the end of the year. So that's been really helpful, just giving myself permission to do this at a slower pace. And so note that I do really think that the time-release formulas are way better than just the one-use formulas for melatonin, because I'm the kind of sleeper that wakes up in the middle of the night and sometimes has a really hard time getting back to sleep. So that's why I like the time-release versions. Second, the other thing that was really important for me was I had to prove to myself that I could, in fact, operate on very little sleep. So a couple weeks ago, I did not sleep. There's one night that I slept maybe 1 or 2 hours, like nothing. And that was because the next day I had a really long, packed shoot day, which is really physically and like mentally exhausting and demanding on me, and I often have a lot of anxiety that I just won't have the stamina to get through it. So the fear of not being able to like perform spiraled me into these anxious nighttime thoughts, and they become a self-fulfilling prophecy, of course, and then you don't sleep. And my therapist told me, you know, Abby, you're probably gonna be okay. And I made it through the shoot day. I was fine. It sucked, and I need to always remind myself now that, yeah, like not sleeping at night, it's not fun, and it does suck, and the day after is gonna suck. But I'm a mother superwoman, and I can make it through. I can still get through the day, and then I can go home and I can crash and I can get back on track. The third thing that I did was I started to take intermittent breaks from social media, and I deleted all my social media apps on my phone. This was really hard for me to do because, like a lot of you guys probably, I am like totally addicted to my phone, and taking those apps off my phone really made it abundantly clear that it's a bit of a problem. But I can only say that this alone probably made the biggest immediate obvious difference for me. And what I've really just come to realize is that it's just not always so healthy for me to be constantly checking up and constantly kind of scrolling and constantly looking at my social media feeds every hour of the day. So that really, really made a difference for me in my sleep. And the last thing that I did that really helped with my sleeping was I had to stop with the really strict sleeping regimes and routines. All of which, of course, were designed to help improve my sleep hygiene and help me sleep better, but they were actually doing the opposite. So I felt that I really had to loosen the reins a bit. So one thing I've been doing is I've been watching TV in my den with my husband, and I used to never allow myself to watch TV because, again, screen time. But one thing I like to do now is I try to switch up the shows that I watch, because I was finding that I would kind of memorize the theme song, and then when I'd hear that theme song come on again, even if my eyes were closed or I'm kind of dozing out, I would just kind of like get into panic mode, like, oh my God, another episode's gone by, I'm not asleep, etc. So longer shows are best, and kind of boring shows, things that don't require a ton of concentration, so really lighthearted stuff. And I was just finding that usually I would just fall asleep on the couch, and then I would go upstairs and get to bed when I was already in that like total drowsy state. Another fun thing that we've been doing is my husband and I got like a really long, boring 1,000-piece puzzle. Oh man, puzzles are so hard. So they're so boring. And sometimes in the middle of the night, if I'm not sleeping, that's another thing that I'll get doing. But puzzles are a great way to kind of just unwind after a really long day. And then some nights when I'm really already quite tired, I skip the TV downstairs and I skip the puzzles or the books or whatever. And I like already just go right into bed, and I will sometimes just like watch a little show with my husband on occasion. That happens like maybe once a week. And that is so against the sleep hygiene rules. But I have found that loosening the rules and being not so rigid in my sleep routine has actually become the best way to actually get good sleep. There are definitely days that I still don't sleep well, particularly when, I've got something really stressful going on at work, or if I really overthink the routine. But I will say in general, I'm doing so much better just by chilling out a little bit about sleep. I had a therapist once say to me that the more work we put into trying to sleep, the harder it is to sleep. So in other words, sleeping ultimately should be thoughtless. Like, it should be effortless. So the same way I talk about intuitive eating, I'm kind of trying to think about sleep the same way, right? Like, sleep and food and eating are both actually quite intuitive. We're born just knowing and wanting these things. But it's when we start to overthink them and manipulate them, that's when they become overcomplicated, and ultimately that process gets disturbed. So I'm just trying to think in those similar terms and put the same kind of thought process and philosophy into my sleep that I did employ with my eating for intuitive eating. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. If you did, be sure to give it the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below if there's anything else you guys want me to talk about in my personal life, but also any topics related to health, nutrition, etc. Do you like these vlog videos? Is there anything else you'd like to see me do? Subscribe to the channel, of course, and I will see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!